Welcome back to Squawk Box. This morning we are joined by a very special guest right here at the NASDAQ to discuss the economy, markets, and so much more. Legendary investor Paul Tudor Jones is here, founder and chief investment officer of Tudor Investment Corporation, and he is, of course, the founder and a member of the board of the Robinhood Foundation, which is going to be hosting its annual benefit next week. Always a big night in New York. A lot of money, hopefully, to be raised.
Hopefully we're going to raise $75 million.
Well, we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but let's talk markets first. I was going to ask you about the stock market itself, but then you just said something to me which makes me a little bit nervous, which is you're focused less on that right this moment than you are about artificial intelligence. What do you mean?
Well, let me just say, I was minding my business. I went to this tech conference about 2 weeks ago out west, and I just want to share with you what I learned there, Chatham House rules, so we can talk about the content. So it was a small one, 40 notables, but real notables, like household names that you would recognize, the leaders in finance, politics, science, tech. And they had a variety of panels. I was on one on capitalism. And there was a tech panel that had 4 of the leading modelers of the AI models that we're all using today. So it'd be persons 1 through 5 of each of those 4 models. And the quick 3 takeaways from that are, 1, wow, AI can be such a force for good. And we're going to see it immediately in both health and education very quickly. It's going to be fantastic. That's the good news. 2, the neutral news. These models are increasing in their efficiency and performance between, on the very low end, 25%, on the high end, 500%, every 3 or 4 quarters. So it's not even curvilinear. It's a vertical lift in how powerful artificial intelligence is becoming.
Right.
And then thirdly, and the one that disturbed me the most, is that AI clearly poses an imminent threat, security threat, imminent in our lifetimes to humanity. And that was the one that really got me going.
When you say imminent threat, what do you mean?
So I'll get to it. So they had a panel of again, 4 of the leading tech experts. And kind of about halfway through, someone asked them on AI security. Well, what are you doing on AI security? And they said the competitive dynamic is so intense among the companies, and then geopolitically between Russia and China, that there's no agency, no ability to stop and say, maybe we should think about what actually we're creating and building here. And so, and the follow-up question is, well, what are you doing about it? And he said, well, I'm buying 100 acres in the Midwest. I'm getting cattle and chickens, and I'm laying in provisions.
For real?
For real. And that was obviously a little disconcerting. And then he went on to say, I think it's going to take an accident where 50 to 100 million people die to make the world take the threat of this really seriously. Well, that was a freaky deek to me, and no one pushed back on him on that panel. And then afterwards, we had a breakout session, which was really interesting. All 40 people got up in a room like this, and they had a series of propositions, and you had to either agree with or disagree with the proposition. And one of the propositions was there's a 10% chance in the next 20 years that AI will kill 50% of humanity. So there's a 10% chance that AI will kill 50% of humanity in the next 20 years. Agree or disagree? So I'd say the vast majority of the room moved to the disagree side. I had just heard Joe Rogan and Elon Musk 2 months ago, where Elon Musk said, there's only a 20% chance that AI can annihilate humanity. Now I know why he wants to go to Mars, right? And so about 6 or 7 of us went to the agree side, and I'd gone there because of what I'd heard Elon Musk say, who's maybe the most brilliant engineer of our time. All all four modelers were on the agree side of that. All four of the leading developers of the AI models were on that side. And then we debated. Then the two sides got to debate. And one of the modelers says to the disagree side, if you don't think there's a 10% chance, as fast as these models are growing, and how quickly they're commoditizing knowledge, how easily they're making it accessible, that someone couldn't biohack, because that's where the real weakness is. A weapon that could take out half of humanity. I don't know. 10% seems reasonable to me.
Okay, so thank you for bringing us this great news over breakfast.
No. Can I just say, I'm not a tech expert. I'm not. But I've spent my whole life managing risk. That's why I'm here today, is because I'm as good as there is on macro risk management. And we just have to realize, to their credit, all these folks in AI are telling us we're creating something that's really dangerous. It's going to be really great too, but we're helpless to do anything about it. That's, to their credit, what they're telling us. And yet we're doing nothing right now, and it's really disturbing.
Okay, so let me ask you then two follow-ups. What would you be doing from a sort of policy regulatory perspective, and what would you be doing as a risk manager investor perspective?
Well, first of all, again, I think markets are irrelevant with regard to this particular topic.
Because it's existential.
It's existential, and they're telling us that. And so there are three things that we have to do. First is, 2024, there was about $250 billion spent on AI by the Mag 7, maybe $500 billion totally globally. According to those four models, the AI spend on security was less than $1 billion. So a 1/4% on AI security versus out of $250 billion spent. So these companies, started by great men, great moral men of great character, they need to step forward and show the ethical and moral leadership, and need to spend at least, well, Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, he's the one who developed neural nets, which is the precursor. He just had a podcast a month ago, he was on a newscast a month ago where he agreed with Elon Musk's assessment that 10 to 20% is about the right number for it to annihilate humanity. He said they should be spending 1/3.
Okay.
So we've got it somewhere between 1/4% and 1/3. At least 10% needs to be on AI security by the people who are creating and profiting from these models. That's one. Two, President Trump has to get in the game. He has to be in the game. You can have good deregulation and good regulation side by side. They're not mutually exclusive. So in this particular instance, on his watch and on President Xi's watch, in the next 4 years, we'll probably have artificial superintelligence, which means you take one of these algorithms that's smarter than any human on Earth, have more than a PhD equivalent, and then you link them with 1 million others, and we're going to have that big bang. We're going to have artificial superintelligence. So he has to get in the game. I mean, if you think about it, right? We have cars that can go twice the speed limit. We have planes that can break the sound barrier, but we have created regulations for our safety and for social cohesion to live within that. So we have this. Large language models have been around for 30 months. It took the greatest generation 18 months for the Atomic Energy Commission to be formed. He has to get in the game and focus like he does on tariffs and on the border. He has to get in the game and regulate this.
While I have you here,
yes.
I want to ask you about tariffs and regulation and the markets just right now before we talk about Robinhood.
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing. I'm really concerned about these open source models and how they are commoditizing and making what were previously indecipherable, pockets of knowledge, easily accessible. You can have a bad actor like Osama bin Laden take these things with his cult following somewhere down the road. Or you can have innocent actors like, hopefully, those researchers in Wuhan laboratory make a mistake, who made a mistake, and they can be real threats to humanity. So we really, and then finally, we have to do something. You individually, every time a tech expert comes on this show, you better ask him, what are you doing on AI security? We individually have to ask our elected officials, what are you doing today on AI security? We're being called out. They're telling us that they want to be regulated. We have to do something now.
Okay, because we're going to run out of time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of folks who watch you, and they want to know what you think about these markets. They want to know what you think about tariffs. They want to know about what you think about what's going to happen over the next 12 months.
Right.
Where are we?
For me, it's pretty clear. You have Trump, who's locked in on tariffs. You have the Fed, who's locked in on not cutting rates. That's not good for the stock market. We'll probably go down to new lows until even when Trump dials back China to 50%.
And that's what you're expecting?
Oh, I'm sure he'll dial it back to 50 at some time. I mean, I think that's kind of in the market right now. So he'll dial it back to 50 or 40, whatever. Even when he does that, you got those tariffs, the equivalent of a 2%. It'd be the largest, they're a tax. It's like the largest tax increase since the 60s. So you can kind of take 2 to 3% off growth. And then you got the Fed, who's, unless they got really dovish and really, really cut, you're probably going to new lows. And then when we're in new lows, the hard data will start to follow, and it'll probably create the Fed to move, create Trump to move, and then we'll get some kind of rally.
Is there an optimism, though, do you see a rainbow at the other side of this policy on tariffs?
Well,
and what?
Can I just say, correcting the trade imbalance was a great idea. Tariffs used, I think, surgically, not to the extent that conceivably he's used, would have been great also. If you think about China coming to WTO, we had free trade, but we didn't have freely floating exchange rates. So this problem started 20 some odd years ago. It's just manifested itself finally, really, to the tipping point right now.
We're going to have to go and run out of time. I just want to talk about Robinhood for a moment. Also wanted to ask you, by the way, about not-for-profit statuses of not-for-profits in America today and how much you're concerned about what's going on there.
Well, can I just say, good Lord, not-for-profits are the linchpin of the social safety net that keeps America great. It's the linchpin. There's nothing more important. The intellectual capital that comes out of not-for-profits is so important to guide what we do socially, both from a governmental standpoint as well as what we do privately. Just incredibly important. $500 billion of philanthropic giving. I think realistically, you put a multiple on it. I think at Robinhood, we think our giving has a 9 multiple. Let's just say that we're the top of the heap and it's really a 3 or 4 multiple. You're still talking about $2 trillion of capital for goodness. So they're really important. Robinhood, here's the key takeaway for us this year, and I think why this year is maybe our most important year. You look at the budget cuts that are planned, and then what you really got is you got an 8% drop in incomes for the lower 20%. That's what we're looking at, an 8% drop for the lower 20%, while you and I and probably most of your listeners are going to come out of this unscathed. So does that sound right to you?
Of course not.
Okay. So I can't control what happens in Washington. I can control what I do. And I'm hopeful that like in 2008, when we were on our ass in New York City, that was our biggest fundraising year ever. People that were down 30% in their net worth gave more than they ever did because they saw what was happening to the least among us. And I fully anticipate that this year, that particularly the people that are benefiting from this particular policy are going to give more, and I pray they do next Monday night, are going to give more than they ever had. we've got, just so you know, the best lineup we've ever had. We've got The Weeknd. We've got Seth MacFarlane. We've got Oz the Mentalist, who's going to come out and predict who
We love Oz.
Who Trump is going to replace Powell with. So we got all kinds of. Keith Urban is coming out of the country to play in the city. It's going to be great.
Paul Tudor Jones, thank you for scaring us and inspiring us.
I did not scare you. I illuminated us so that you have a responsibility to ask every tech person on here, what are we doing on security?
You got a deal. Paul, thank you. Appreciate it. We got a lot more coming up on Squawk, coming out after this.
Chance that AI will kill 50% of humanity in the next 20 years. Agree or disagree? So I'd say the vast majority of the room moved to the disagree side. I had just heard Joe Rogan and Elon Musk 2 months ago, where Elon Musk said, there's only a 20% chance that AI can annihilate humanity. Now I know why he wants to go to Mars.
Paul Tudor Jones last hour on Squawk Box sounding the alarm on AI. David, kind of resurrecting some of the early concerns you, me, and Jim have shared at this desk about security in AI.
Without a doubt, certainly our conversations, let's call it in 2023 into 24, we haven't talked as often about those kinds of issues, but they're still out there. They're still discussed. Paul Tudor Jones, obviously an expert on the financial markets, but like many of us, when it comes to AI, he's just listening to many of the experts and sort of saying, wait a second, which of course is something I think we all need to be aware of. Are the guardrails going to be put in place? Can we really trust that they will? I think that's still a very much open question, guys, as we watch this develop so quickly. And by the way, I mean, in a conversation with John Gray yesterday, we were talking about what's front and center for us and all the challenges in the economy. But over here is this enormous societal change. Whether it actually will destroy civilization or not, it is still going to bring enormous change in our society, and it's coming quickly.
It's interesting that this hits, or it gets resurfaced. At the same time, I do think that there's a pretty big kind of disillusionment curtain coming down on some parts of AI. People saying, okay, maybe we've decelerated in terms of the pace of advance. Maybe, it's not just about, increasing data center capacity and that's going to magically, give us the same pace of gains. I mean, I know that Paul Tudor Jones is also saying, hey, when atomic energy came around, we had the Atomic Energy Commission really quickly after that. We should have a government convene. Well, is that going to happen? Is that what we're doing right now, is going to experts and deciding what the science says and what the probabilities are? I mean, I don't know. It feels like the market's going to have to sort this out in the short term.
Yeah, well, Mike, it also is private enterprise that's leading the way here as opposed to the U.S. government in terms of the development of the atomic bomb, for example. Kind of a different thing. We haven't really seen any regulatory. We had some. There was conversation certainly during the Biden administration, I think. I don't really know. Paul Tudor Jones was calling for the president now to really get involved. We're relying on the likes of Sam Altman and Elon Musk and others to treat it responsibly. But he did have, as he said, there some real concerns as well about open source. Meta, of course, and Llama is open source, as is DeepSeek. It's going to be a new world. We talk about it, of course, and the impact it's going to have in the enterprise, the efficiencies that conceivably it will be bringing, the increase in potential margins, of course, the decrease perhaps in employment, though you get a lot of debate about that, as we always hear, because every technology increase or every technology, introduction ultimately results in more jobs. I don't know, so many things to talk about and debate here, but of course, when it does come to the end of civilization, that's something we might want to focus on. Yeah. I do think Musk is going to take that rocket up there with all his descendants, and then he's going to call Mars Musk, right? Isn't he going to just change the name of the planet too?
Oh, that would be good. You can raise the chainsaw on Mars.
Yeah.
The other thing about Tudor Jones is he didn't seem to discount the notion of revisiting the lows.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt. He basically says, markets do this. You have this kind of false dawn. And look, I've been pointing to this history of, there's a case where all this was an overstated panic, like 98, like all these instances in the past, 2018. You got a near bear market, you got the recovery off that, but 80% of those you have some form of retest, you have some kind of, let's see if this was real. Now a retest, a full retest of the intraday lows, pretty far drop from here at this point. 48.30 is the number.
Let's get the opening bell here. and see what this Tuesday brings. At the big board this morning, it's UConn women's basketball celebrating their NCAA national champion title. At the NASDAQ, it's 1-800-Flowers.com celebrating Mother's Day this Sunday. And the breadth picture, bit of a opposite image from the last couple of days. Mike, to what degree is Palantir a weight